On this week's NFV SDN Reality Check, we look at some of the top news items from across the space, as well as speak with CloudGenix on the impact SDN is having on enterprise SD-WAN efforts.
Telecom Careers, the #1 global telecom and wireless job board, telecomcareers.com.
Well, thanks for joining us on this week's NFV SDN Reality Check. I'm your host, Dan Meyer, Editor-in-Chief here at RCR Wireless News. On today's show, we have an interview with Kumar Ramachandran, who's the co-founder and CEO of CloudGenix, on the impact SDN is having on enterprise SD-WAN efforts. But first, let's take a look at some of the top headlines from across the telecom-related NFV, SDN, cloud, and software space from the past week. First, the Open Compute Project announced the formation of its Telco Project, focused on data center technologies for telecom operators. OCP said the Open Forum will focus on communicating telecom technical requirements to the OCP community, look to strengthen the OCP ecosystem to address the deployment and operational needs of telecom operators, and look to bring its work to telecom data center and infrastructure to provide increased cost savings and agility. Bolstering the program is the addition of AT&T, Deutsche Telekom, EE, SK Telecom, and Verizon Communications as members of OCP. Also joining this week are Equinix and Nexius, with the organization noting Nokia Networks has announced plans to incorporate OCP designs into its AirFrame Data Center portfolio. Also this week, a new report from Technology Business Research expects telecom operators to increase their reliance on software technologies based on NFV and SDN to reduce costs and better compete against established software-based service providers. The TBR report claims telecom operators over the next year will look to focus on consolidation and cost-cutting initiatives to improve their profitability of their enterprise businesses, citing recent moves by CenturyLink and Verizon and looking to divest their data centers and, of course, IBM's recent acquisition of AT&T's managed application hosting services business. TBR senior analyst Chris Antlitz said carriers like AT&T and Verizon were moving away from the public cloud business due to their inability to gain market share against established competitors such as Amazon Web Services. Instead, Antlitz said operators will focus their 2016 cloud strategies on providing network connectivity and value-added services to solutions offered by leading cloud network service providers and through interconnection platforms such as AT&T's NetBond. Antlitz added that in a move to reduce costs, carriers will emphasize using leasing agreements with data center providers to gain capacity rather than investing in launching additional facilities. Further, TBR said carriers were adopting NFV and SDN to reduce costs and gain agility in service offerings, citing AT&T's Network on Demand platform and Verizon's SDN-based SD-WAN offerings. The analyst firm added early adopters are set to reap the greatest benefits, gaining a time-to-market advantage and offering enhanced applications to enterprises. Well, speaking of SDN-based SD-WAN efforts, I recently had a chance to speak with CloudGenix to gain some insight into this rapidly growing space and what impact SDN was having on enterprise SD-WAN efforts. Let's take a look at the interview now. Well, thanks for joining us this week. This week, I am joined by Kumar Ramachandran, who's the co-founder and CEO of CloudGenix, to talk about SD-WAN, which is for myself, a bit of a new topic. I know the companies who are dealing with this are very familiar with it, obviously, but we'll get some more insight from that today. So Kumar, thanks so much for joining us this week. We appreciate it.
Oh, it's great to be here.
Thanks so much. Well, maybe let's start off with, let's get an overview of the company there, kind of what you guys do, where you're located, maybe a little background on you guys, and then we'll kind of dive into the SD-WAN space as well. So yeah, maybe start off with just a little overview there.
Oh, absolutely. So CloudGenix, what we do is very simple. We transform networking by replacing old models of routing with an application-defined fabric, right? What does this mean? So if you are an enterprise with lots of remote sites, whether you're a retailer, you're a financial firm, a bank, a healthcare, a hospital, how do your remote offices connect back to data centers? How do they connect back to clouds? How do you simplify that connectivity and allow you to deliver new rich applications that are secure as well as high performing? That's our focus. We were founded in 2013, backed by some of the Tier 1 names in Silicon Valley in terms of venture funding, and several great customers that are using our product in production.
Very good. No, obviously this SD-WAN space, it's definitely it's probably much more established than I think it is, because for me it's still somewhat new. But I guess can you describe a little bit about what it does, maybe more specifically, and kind of who your target customers are, and just kind of an overview of that, just mostly probably for myself more than anybody else, but yeah, just maybe some more insight into the actual technology itself and what it does and how it improves, for an enterprise customer.
Right. So let's look at the three big defining characteristics of SD-WAN. Right. So the very first is that if you think of networking, much like SDN in the data center, we've had a fragmented brain in networking. Right. The control has always been fragmented, and that creates a lot of complexity in how you build these networks. It creates brittleness, creates security vulnerabilities. So what the CloudGenix SD-WAN does is first, we've created a central brain. The brain sees the entire network, it builds the network, secures the network on behalf of the network administrator. Second, what's happened in networking over the years is that we built layer upon layer of complexity and really a lot of routing protocols needing to be deployed, even for getting basic connectivity. At CloudGenix, we took a very different approach. We said, if IT is trying to solve their business problems, fundamentally the delivery of applications is the core problem for any remote office. Whether it's a retail store, how do I get my credit card transactions highly efficient? If you're a bank, how do I get my teller applications? How do I connect, let's say, my wealth management person to the customer, to the applications residing in the cloud? If you're an enterprise, how do I now bring in, let's say, Office 365? How do I move UC to the cloud? And how do I connect all these? If you used old models of networking, it's, in fact, one of our customers describes it as a CCIE lab project, right? CCIE being, one of the premier or very, very difficult to obtain networking certifications.
Yep.
And the challenge is that there's so much complexity associated with that. In our model, what we said is, let's allow the customer to come in and define what is the security profile, what is the performance profile, what's the compliance profile I want for an application that's being delivered to the remote office, and our system builds a network on behalf of the customer. So that's transformative and hugely increases productivity for our customers. The third big thing that we wind up doing for these customers is really enable the transition from hardware to software. Traditionally, people have had to truck roll any number of custom pieces of hardware to the remote offices. We've eliminated all of that, right? You can go to white box solutions, or you can get an x86-based appliance from us. But you really made this transition from legacy models of hardware and the costs associated with hardware to a subscription model with software.
Got it. Okay, makes sense. Now, I guess, again, does it seem like that some of your customers who are making this move, I'm guessing if they're making it, they must be ready to do this, but it does seem like it is adding, you're giving them more control over what they are able to do. Does it seem like a lot of them are prepared to handle that kind of responsibility? Because, a lot of IT departments and enterprises, perhaps are already just struggling, as much as it's just getting iPhones attached and things like that with their own IT stuff internally. Right. Does it seem like that they're ready to kind of make this jump? And are you guys able to help them kind of make that transition from that hardware world to the more scalable and software world, I guess?
Yeah, so let's take an example. One of our customers, Columbia Sportswear, the reason they moved to us really is three big reasons. One, they've had a number of omni-channel or new application initiatives, right? They want to deliver UC as a service from the cloud. They want to, over time, migrate to more modern point-of-sale systems and be able to deliver video kiosks to the retail store. You can't do that with their existing private WAN-based network today because the capacity is limited. They don't have the controls. Second, the cost of the network is humongous, right? Wide area network connectivity cost is just out of whack. What we've been able to do for them is reduce the cost by 50 to 70% for each of their remote offices by helping them use the internet as a WAN transport in conjunction with their existing MPLS connection. The third big thing for them really has been about availability and productivity. So in fact, over the holiday break, to your point on, hey, risk versus reward with new technology, right? As Black Friday rolled in, what they were very worried about a lot of their store locations because historically, as you get this crush of holiday shoppers, you want to make sure your network doesn't become a problem in taking down those credit cards and enabling those transactions, because that's a peak productivity period for retail. With the CloudGenix solution, they had 100% uptime. Even though they had instances where one of their connections wasn't behaving well, they had last-minute issues with service providers, but because the CloudGenix solution was doing an active management of all connectivity options presented, we were able to keep the holidays humming. So when you look at where they came from and how they migrated to us, it's actually more risky to not migrate to a solution like CloudGenix, right? Now, granted, we've done some things in the product to make that migration easy too. So we don't ask a customer to do a rip-replace on day one, right? So I like to joke that Cisco customers love CloudGenix, right? Because if you have your old Cisco router, keep it. You don't have to tear it out on day one, right? We slide right behind in, we take over the network, we manage it all. If anything bad happens to CloudGenix, or there is some issue, we fail to your existing network. So worst case is you have your network the way it works today. But once you're comfortable, give it a few weeks, maybe a quarter if you want to. Once you're comfortable with the solution, you have no issues. Yeah. So really the approach we've taken, and it's very unique in the industry, by being able to de-risk deployments is a big part of the reason that we're seeing rapid customer adoption.
Got it. And I guess it seems like that level of comfort, I guess, from those enterprises and actually moving this might be probably the biggest challenge for you guys, is just getting, because again, these people are used to using these hardware solutions. They're used to using the Cisco routers forever and ever. They know all the quirks about how these things work. If something goes wrong, they usually probably know what it is. And, but I guess it seems like then that's kind of the biggest challenge really, is just making sure that they're comfortable with what's going to be basically a new kind of platform for them. And again, I guess that transition period, that hybrid network approach there for a while, kind of, I guess, allows that to kind of, take place over a period of time for them. So just as long as they're comfortable with it.
That's exactly right. And the remote office is a great place to get started with advanced technology, right? If you went and make modifications to your data center, that's usually a little bit more intense for the customer. It impacts the enterprise. So usually, with customers, they're very comfortable picking a couple remote offices. These are locations that have some pain associated, like the example that I gave you. So bringing in a solution like this in a de-risked manner actually helps the customer hugely. And that allows the customer to make this gradual migration. So, in terms of de-risking that deployment, one, at the remote office, we have this ability where you fail to your existing network. And then in the data center, what we do is that, especially let's say you're a customer with, 1,000 locations, right? Or 100 locations, whatever it is. And you pick 10% of the locations to get started with, right? So maybe 10 remote offices or 100 remote offices, whatever it is. In the data center, for the connections that do come and terminate in the data center, the CloudGenix device will only get in the traffic for the sites that you're actually deploying CloudGenix, right? So if you have 100 sites, 10 remote sites are CloudGenix, that is the only traffic that goes through the CloudGenix device in the data center. The remaining 90 devices you don't have to worry about, right? They're all following the old traffic patterns. So you really get this comfort because of this very interesting model of deployment that's quite unique to us. The second thing, and this really, frankly, I spent many years, I spent more of my life being a consumer, being a customer of vendor products than actually being a vendor. When I look at how I used to deploy advanced technology, the point you made about knowing hey, what are the 3 little things I need to do to troubleshoot something? Enormously useful. So what we did with CloudGenix is that we present, frankly, unparalleled amounts of information to the customer in terms of what exactly is going on in the network, right? The way I like to describe it is like a Google map, right? A Google map is, you can see 3 different layers in a Google map, where you can see a terrestrial layer, right? Which is every last little, if you're going on a hike or going on a walk, you want to know, hey, am I going to be climbing 2,000 feet or am I just walking a mile? So getting that physical characteristics, is my internet behaving the way it needs to? Is there too much jitter? Is there a brownout, right? Brownout detection is really notoriously difficult. Blackouts are easier for legacy products. With legacy products, you can do brownout detection. They give you that visibility at the physical layer itself, the connectivity layer. And that helps the customer troubleshoot, debug problems. Next, we give you this a view on the overlay, right? Across all your connections, how is the overall connectivity to a site behaving? And the third layer that we give you really is an application-centric layer. where what it is showing you is that what flows, what paths are different applications taking, what kind of performance are your users seeing. I'll give you a great example. Recently, Slack was, which I think is a very, very a great messaging tool. In fact, we use it here at CloudGenix too, and seems to have very rapid adoption. Every other SaaS service, they're having some hiccups. And what happened is that with one of our customers who was using Slack, they were able to see on our charts, is the Slack service, the Slack data center having an issue? Or is their internet provider, Comcast in their case, are they having an issue, right? And the system showed it directly right there for the SaaS service. So from a troubleshooting standpoint, all that the IT person had to do was pick up the phone, call Slack and say, hey, our region is behaving really slow. Can you guys open a trouble ticket for us, right? In the old times, you would actually not have any idea about where the problem is. Lots of productivity lost in trying to debug and troubleshoot it.
Yeah, it makes sense. And you mentioned earlier too, I guess, the security aspect of this, because I know that's still always a concern. I mean, obviously, a lot of enterprises are moving to the cloud. It seems like that's kind of the way everybody's going to be going here at some point. But that security concern is always there. I mean, obviously, legacy systems have had their own security issues too. But it seems like, as you're giving up maybe some of that physical control, or what feels like the physical control of your information or your services to the cloud or using the internet, I guess that security aspect seems like a big part of this. I guess, how do you guys tackle increasing the comfort level of security? Because that does seem like that's, I'm sure I charge all your clients. That's kind of be one of the big concerns, is making sure that everything remains secure to a level that they're used to, or if not better than what they're used to.
Yeah. So especially in these times where there have been any number of breaches to 2014 and 2015, this is a top of mind thing for all our customers. So we have great success in customers that are security conscious, because we frankly bring three big things to the table in that respect. But the very first thing is the hardware-based, routing-based models of networking. They actually tie security to physical topology, right? I have to physically instantiate, put my firewall in the presence of my traffic if I need to be secure. So as networks and applications have gotten more fluid, where my application can sit in my data center, it can be in AWS, it can be a SaaS location. Staying tied to a physical model for security or topologically dependent model for security becomes very complex, right? Because now you have to go through every path, make sure everything is working, and you never know when the path is doesn't have a firewall in its route or something. What we've done is actually decouple the physical topology from your security policy. So we associate your security policy with the application flow. So to take an example, if you as an enterprise have a policy that traffic headed out to Office 365, and in fact SharePoint within Office 365 needs to be routed through a certain firewall, independent of what path the system takes. Maybe it's direct out from the internet, from the remote office to Office 365. Maybe it's via MPLS, backhaul to a data center or an internet exit point, and then it goes out to Office 365. Just doesn't matter. We will enforce that security compliance policy. The second thing we do is we build your fully encrypted full mesh VPN with zero touch from the administrator. I like to joke that usually in IT, when people say zero touch, what they really mean is 0.7, maybe 1.2, maybe 10.7 touch. Zero touch. And usually I invite customers to get on our system and configure a highly powerful full mesh VPN. And the third big thing about security really has come down to how do you intelligently segment out your network, right? As you start using internet, as you start going to all these SaaS and cloud-based locations in addition to your data center, what you want to be able to do is very intelligently micro-segment your network. Now we are seeing the beginnings of that in the data center with SDN, whether it's VMware NSX or the other players. You're seeing a lot of micro-segmentation place. The question of how do you extend those segments, not just from server to the edge of the data center, but all the way down to where the user is accessing the application at the home office. So we have the ability to micro-segment out your application all the way end to end with very little administrative intervention outside of having just set up a centralized policy.
That makes sense. Makes sense. Now, obviously, here at RCR, we focus a lot more on the mobile telecom space, and obviously in the enterprise space, mobile is becoming an increasing part of all this, whether it's Wi-Fi or cellular, whatever they're using. I guess, has there been any sort of adjustments, or what does that throw any sort of wrench into how this is being rolled out, or how does the mobile connectivity part of this, is that any different from what you guys are already doing anyway in terms of going to the enterprises at this point?
Yeah, so actually a great example we saw during the holiday break was that some of the retailers that have started using LTE as an option in their core networking model, right? Mm-hmm. So we have retailers that they have an internet connection, and then they have an LTE connection, mm-hmm. and initially they don't want just active backup. They want intelligent usage of both connectivity, being able to say, hey, my credit card application, because LTE still has a charge per use model in many cases. Make sure that only my business critical applications are sharing all capacity. Some applications are not, mm-hmm. right? You really want that application level intelligence and policy, but it works great. So what we saw during the holiday rush was some locations, they had great LTE connectivity. It worked fantastically. Some locations, it was very interesting. At one mall in Florida, where we are deployed with some of the retailers, they looked at the LTE connectivity, looked great. And then for Black Friday, and these days Black Friday starts on Thursday evening, Thursday evening, 6 p.m., when all the users walk into the mall, everyone's, of course, carrying their cell phones, right? So they take the capacity of the cell phone tower down, and the LTE connectivity at the store comes down to a crowd, right? But what our system is then able to do is manage the applications within the remaining available connectivity, prioritize appropriately, keep the store humming. So absolutely not a single credit card transaction was impacted, right? So it became a great uptime story. So I do see that as a hugely beneficial option that will be increasingly adopted in the remote office.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like, you're kind of giving the enterprises the ability to kind of, again, self-provision how they want it to run. If they want it to run over their LTE network predominantly for some reason or whatever it is, they can do that. But then again, it has this fail-safe where if something does go wrong on either side, it can automatically switch over to where, you keep that constant connection or the quality of service that you need for the enterprises then.
That's exactly right. And the ROI associated with it is very, very powerful. In fact, just this morning, for a relatively small organization with about 60 remote offices, we were just working on the ROI for them. And we just finished presenting to the CIO. They have an ROI of $4 million for the project. Wow. Right? The 60 sites, they get to save $4 million by a combination of avoidance of MPLS increase, bringing in internet in a secure and high performance manner into their remote offices. This is their 3 to 5 year ROI. So that's just very, very compelling, right? You can now take those $4 million and you can apply it to other parts of IT and infrastructure, right? So it's a huge cost saving in addition to all the benefits that the solution provides.
Yeah. I mean, anytime you can throw some money on the table to the C-level guys there, it makes their decision making a lot easier, I'm guessing. So that's always a big part of it. But
that's exactly right, and that's that's a huge part of the reason for the rapid adoption, right? Sometimes when technologies like software-defined networking come along, the challenge can be that if the only thing you brought to the table are what customers may view as soft savings, mm-hmm. right, productivity, etc., it takes a longer adoption cycle. Right? Whereas when you have hard cost savings, like we have here, mm-hmm. right? 70% cost savings on a line item, budget line item that represents 10 to 20% of the IT budget. Now that gets the attention of the CFO and it moves these projects to the top, head of the queue.
That gets the signature pretty quick, that's for sure. But no, I guess nothing we focus on in this show at least is we're looking at a lot of the SDN and NFV space and mostly focus on the kind of telecom world. But it does seem like over the past couple of years, I mean SDN has been in the data center world for years and years, and it's making that migration to the telecom world. Have you seen, I guess, any sort of advances or perhaps speeding up of advances in terms of SDN in general because of, I guess, more industries looking to use software, use virtualization as part of their overall operations? Does it seem like, from what you're seeing at least, that the software space is evolving more rapidly because there is so much more focus? I mean, it seems like there's more cloud support now. There's more companies getting involved in this. Are you seeing more advances in that space? And is it making it easier for you guys, or is it more of a challenge because there's more people involved now in this? Or what do you, I guess, think in the overall picture of kind of the software space right now?
Yeah, so software-defined networking in the data center, I think is very complementary to SD-WAN, right? Because if you're an enterprise customer, what you really want, you don't want silos of excellence and silos of the new solution, right? Ideally, you want to be able to say, hey, my data center is dynamic, it's fluid, it's software-defined, so is the rest of my enterprise, right? I'm not stopping with one half of the organization. Mm-hmm. So as we are seeing this very crisp ROI, very rapid adoption related to ROI, security, and network cloud adoption for the remote office in the data center, I think the micro-segmentation use case that, frankly, I think VMware with their NSX solution has seen a lot of success with, and some of the work they've done on improving product, the fluidity and rapidity of the data center. I really think the whole industry is seeing a rapidity, right, or much faster adoption. In fact, one of our customers, they are both an NSX customer as well as a CloudGenix customer, and what they find is that as you bring the solutions together, right, you get this end-to-end secure segmentation model. You get this model where I don't have to manage the physical details of my network in different parts of the solution, but I can set up a policy, set it up centrally, and the network gets created and built all the way from the server to the screen, right? Because that's what you really want. So frankly, as I look at how the industry evolves in the next few months and quarters here, we're getting pretty close to what used to be, in my mind, the holy grail of IT, right? Where it always used to be the desire for us IT practitioners out in the field that why can't the vendors organize themselves in a way that I can specify application-based policies in a centralized manner and let infrastructure choreograph itself, right? We're finally at a place with the software-defined constructs where we're no longer bound by the limitations and the hard definitions that hardware needs. By moving from hardware to software, by creating that topological independence, we're finally at the place where architecturally and from a solution standpoint, we can get to the holy grail of I come in, I manage to my application policy, and I let the infrastructure choreograph itself. And I think that is the exciting possibility ahead of all of us in IT.
Makes sense. I mean, I guess, are we seeing any sort of challenges in terms of interoperability or, I talk with a lot of companies and, a lot of them are using open source and they claim open source is the way to go when it comes to kind of move this towards software just to allow interoperability down the road. And a lot of organizations are working on this as well. Is that a challenge at all? Or do you find that that's, at least for you guys, maybe not such a big deal at this point, just making sure that that's all working in the day for customers?
Right. So the big thing for us really is to ensure that all the interfaces are open.
Okay.
Right. So the way that we work is that our controller, which really is a centralized repository of all the control and statistical information about the network. Northbound, you can access it with an API, and we're seeing very interesting use cases that customers are using to program the network. Right. Even in the troubleshooting example that I gave you, where if a customer is trying to troubleshoot a SaaS application in his environment and needs to open a trouble ticket with either the service provider who's giving network connectivity or with the SaaS provider, right? That can be fully automated, right? Where you can write a little program running on top of a controller, an app on the controller, where it opens based on what statistics it's seeing in the system. You can open a trouble ticket either with your service provider or directly with your SaaS provider or your cloud provider. So what that does, it takes away manual steps from the system and creates the automation you need, right? So having those open interfaces has been critical for us in that respect.
Makes sense. Well, maybe I ask one final question before we wrap up here. I guess as you look ahead in this market over the next 6 to 12 months or so, do you see any big challenges, or what do you see? I guess maybe as some things that might keep you guys up late at nights or some long weekends for you guys. Do you guys see anything specifically out there that might challenge you guys? And I guess how are you approaching perhaps tackling those issues and maybe a little ahead of time?
So right now this market is in the midst of extremely rapid growth, right? So, I think I was looking at some of the analyst forecasts, and they expect that 30% of all remote offices in the next 3 years will migrate to an SD-WAN solution like CloudGenix, right? Which is, if you look at a movement from less than 1% to 30%, that's very, very rapid. Right? So the focus of my team really is on ensuring operational scale, right? where as the number of customers continues to grow very rapidly, their deployments are growing very rapidly, that we as a company, we are completely engaged in customer delight and customer happiness. One of the great things I love about the movement towards a more subscription-based, OpEx-based model is that it puts vendors, it keeps vendors honest, right? I love the fact that a customer has choices. It's open. It's choice-driven. It's the onus is on the vendor that you continue to deliver that absolute customer delight. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, the customer is able to pull the plug on you without a very high switching cost, right? As a startup, we aspire to make each and every one of our customers completely delighted, mm-hmm. right? So staying focused on that as we grow extremely rapidly, I think that's the fun part ahead in this market for the next few months.
Yeah, that's a good point. I know at least in the telecom space, that's one thing I know all the big operators are trying to get away from is that vendor lock situation they've had in the past. They want to move towards the software. I know, AT&T, for instance, with its domain project, that's a big part of what they're trying to do. And it seems like they are trying to bring in a lot of newer companies, these new names into the telecom space to really drive this kind of innovation. So yeah, that's a good point. Obviously that's what everybody's looking for is to make sure that they can be a little more agile out there. So
exactly, be agile, have choices, and be able to pick the best solution. The best solution, is CloudGenix. I'm just joking.
I like that at the end. Good to get that in there. Well done. Well, hey, Kumar, I definitely appreciate the great insight on that today. Obviously, like I was saying at the beginning, for myself, I'm still trying to get a handle on the SD-WAN part of this. We do a lot on the SDN and NFV side here, but this is obviously an offshoot of that too. And I've talked to a few companies in the past about it. And it does seem like it's, like you said, it's a growing market. Going from 1% to 30%. I'm sure for you guys, just holding on to the ride there is going to be enough. Just trying to stay on top of everything. So definitely a growing market out there. That's for sure.
That's right. When customers ask me, hey, what do you think are great next steps for us? I usually say, hey, try one of two things. Pick a remote office. Mm-hmm. And maybe can slide in a device or two there. In a week's time, we'll produce a ROI report for the customer, mm-hmm. which says, hey, how is it going to look before CloudGenix? How is it going to look after CloudGenix? And we're able to do this in a completely non-disruptive manner. So, see the ROI in your own environment, and then press the big green button that says, let's start the SD-WAN POC. But do it knowing that you have a strong ROI, right? There's no need to do a POC. I think the old model from legacy vendors was that, we'll truck roll lots of gear and engage in a very, very long POC. I usually tell customers, the POC takes you more than a week. That tells you something about the complexity of those products.
That's true. That's been the nice thing about it. Seems like about at least this move to software is it's something that you can just try pretty easily. Different little parts of your network, at one remote center, wherever you want to do it at, and it's really easy to do. And if it doesn't work out, hey, it doesn't work out. But it's no, not a huge effort involved in trying to at least trial it out at least. So
that's exactly right. And the system gives you an ROI report. So the worst case is that you send the report to your CIO and he thinks you're a hero.
It's good for everybody, right? That's always good for everybody. So, well, again, Kumar, definitely appreciate the insight on this today. And it was great talking with you. And hopefully we'll touch base again soon on the topic. But thanks so much again.
Sounds great. Thanks a lot.
All right. Well, some good insight there from CloudGenix on a rapidly growing space. Well, again, thanks for joining us in this week's NFV SDN Reality Check. And make sure to check us out again next week when we are scheduled to speak with Tech Mahindra on tips for CSPs in deploying SDN and NFV. Thanks for watching.
NFV SDN Reality Check with Dan Meyer is a production of RCR TV. To suggest show topics or to reach Dan, you can find him on email, dmeyer@rcrwireless.com, and on Twitter @Meyer_Dan. For more Dan, news on NFV SDN and everything wireless, find your way over to rcrwireless.com.